Get your brooms, witches. We're flying to the third trial, Agatha's trial. Hey y'all, my name's Sasha, and today we're going to be reviewing episode 5 of Agatha All Along. This is the first episode that they did not send to press or anyone reviewing these episodes that got early screeners. And I think by the end of the episode, it's pretty clear why. I'm going to have a spoiler-free section of this and a spoiler section of this. So when the time comes, I'll have my magic on the screen to let you know when you might need to check out if you haven't watched the episode yet, which what do you even do in watching a review when you haven't seen it yet? But watch it. Here's a summary of the episode before we get into my thoughts. The Coven's third trial is centered around Agatha, a Ouija board, and some amazing 80s sleepwear attire. I loved the setting of this in this 80s slasher cabin. It reminded me very much of Stranger Things, obviously. I really just loved the fact that you have all of these adult actresses fully in like teenager, like middle school attire with braids, with their hairs in ponytails, with retainers. It was so funny, and I love how far they've committed to the bit of kind of giving each person such a specific look once we enter these new arenas and really just playing with it and giving some people outfits that really pay homage to who they are as a character. So Jennifer is constantly wearing pink in this series, and they've kept that theme with her pajamas. And then, of course, Teen's costume, I think, adds something there, and that's all I'm gonna say about that until we get to the spoiler section, right? I also thought this episode was actually fucking spooky. Like, this episode was genuinely scary, and there's been multiple moments in the show that I've been like, oh, this show is not afraid to be spooky, scary, horror, Sam Raimi inspired, but it really was doing it here. I mean, especially when you have the Salem 7 appear and are chasing our witches down the witches' road. They're creepy as all get out. Really distinct, clear horror elements with the continued campiness tone of this show, and they've blended it flawlessly in a way that doesn't feel like the spooky scares are meant to be not scary. And I feel like it was also a really great way to really heighten the feel of this episode going into some of the reveals and events of the trial of this episode. When last week's episode, I talked to a couple people about it, and a lot of other people felt the way I did, which was I enjoyed the episode. I love them singing the song, but like we also did that in episode 2, you know? So like let's get a hitch in our get along. Let's move on to a trial that maybe reveals more, and this one certainly delivered on that. I also feel like we're genuinely following up on Agatha's backstory from WandaVision. Again, not to spoil anything here, but we really have strong connections to that. The way that they are building Agatha's character is continually, I think, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of viewers of whether Agatha is a more sinister villain than a character like Loki. Loki is a character that I constantly love, defend. There's something to him and his backstory and his more mischievous element rather than being truly antagonizing and villainous at times. The fact that he's more of a pawn in somebody else's game that makes him a little bit of a more lovable villain than someone like Agatha as we're coming to know her. Obviously, I love Kathryn Hahn. Her performance here is great, and I think there's parts of Agatha's backstory that they've really given us to care about her, especially with her relationship with her son. I really like I don't want to say risks because it's just good storytelling, but I think that I genuinely feel like I'm screaming. I'm so sorry. I genuinely feel as though Marvel is doing something different with this series, and I don't know exactly how to put my finger on it. I just know that I like it. Also feel like this episode really explored the volatility of the Coven, of this friend group. We've seen a lot of times when like, oh hey, there's this team up, and it just kind of works. And I think it's fun here to get to see a group that has history, and all of them have a shared history with one individual, and they don't necessarily have great loyalty for one another if it is not advancing their goals. Because if you remember, they're not setting out like other teams in the MCU to like complete a mission or do something that they've been hired to do. They are all in it for their own personal getting what they want at the end of the Witch's Road. And I think we're reminded of that here, that this isn't a we're all in this together moment. None of that hocus pocus. We're fighting to get what we want at the end, and it's really about being the last witch standing. This episode is relatively short, but does so much character work And I think that's what's genuinely so impressive about it. And that's going to be the end of my spoiler-free thought. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. This is your spoiler warning. This is your last spoiler warning, okay? Alice, may she rest in peace, rip Alice. That was a brutal loss, actually, because you can see as it happens that it's like, oh, somebody step in and save her, and then she steps in to save her, and then they're like, oh no, she's gonna take your power. And then again, you're really left here questioning, did Agatha do this because she's just been waiting for this? Because at the beginning of the show, she's like, well, one of you just like, I don't know, shoot me with your powers. Like, she doesn't even want to go down the road at the beginning of the show. That's only something that arises as like a real option because that's the only way she sees to get her power back, because none of these other witches are going to be dumb enough to blast her with their power and like, I don't know, go about their day. And so we have this moment where Agatha does get what she wants at the beginning of the episode, and I don't think she's changed all that much. So I kind of am on the side that she did it on purpose, and I feel like it makes the show way more interesting if she did. Now, I'm gonna be sad because Alice was a fun character. I liked her rocker vibe, but it does also make me question, can the witches die prior to their trial? And then the moment you've all been waiting for. I talked about a headband, but we got a second headband, and holy cow, like, okay, I know that there's always people who are like, oh, Marvel fangirls, blah, 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 blah. But like, I genuinely cannot express to you the cackle of a laugh, of a scream that came out of my mouth when I saw blue specks of magic and that headband. Also, pairing this with You Should See Me in a Crown, this show has already had insanely good on-point needle drops, but to use a Billie Eilish song for this episode, for Joe Locke, for revealing that he is in fact Billy Maximoff, aka Wiccan, oh my gosh. And I love it too, because at this point in Marvel's history, we see ourselves with Wanda, who has been a hero and then most recently sort of turned into a villain, although most people would say justifiably so. And then we have Agatha, who is, we're not really sure if she's capable of change. In fact, that's kind of what reveals Wiccan to us, is this moment of Agatha going, oh, are you so sure? You're just like your mother. I think she said something like that. And it's so good. Like, I feel like that is such an impactful moment and such a way to end an episode. And I want to thank Marvel, whoever decides of order, like, first of all, just the writers for pairing this on this episode, and then whoever decides what episodes get shipped out as screeners. Thank you for saving this one, because for the collective entire community to get to see this at the same time, freak out over it, although some of you are wrong. I have seen people use the end screenshot of this show in their thumbnails. I've seen articles from legitimate publications that blatantly write in the title, okay? And like saying Agatha All Along crowns Wanda Jr., that is telling, and with a picture of Billy teen, tells us everything we need to know. Photos of Billy with like, we reveal, or so-and-so is exactly who you thought it was, or blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm just ashamed sometimes that people will just throw a spoiler out there. The spoiler is not newsworthy. Make your review of the episode and say this may contain spoilers. Say what you need to say. Especially because that's not even clickbait at that point. Like, anybody who's like remotely aware of this show and remotely aware of the comics could see that and be like, oh, so I know what that is. I don't need to click on it. Anyway, that just kind of riles me up. I just want a chef's kiss for the rollout of this secret, this reveal. And I'm really interested that we now still have 3 episodes left to explore this. And this wasn't saved as like a last minute reveal the way that Kamala Khan's being a mutant was, or anything else like that. Like, again, this show to me feels as though it has learned from the mistakes of the shows in the past, and I really, really appreciate that. And that's where I'm going to leave this review. So if you enjoyed it, please subscribe down below, because I will have weekly reviews of the next 3 episodes of of Agatha All Along, as a ton of Marvel videos, because I love to be your friendly neighborhood Marvel fangirl. So with that being said, have an absolutely amazing day or night whenever you're getting to watch this, and I will see you all in my very next video. Bye, guys.